You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Jeff Garvin.
And I'm Dan Zarzana.
Let the journey begin. Welcome back to The Hero's Journey, where we discuss your favorite stories through the lens of Joseph Campbell's monomyth, as well as Chrisopher Vogler's modern cinema-focused adaptation.
No hero should embark on their journey on an empty stomach, so we are filling our bellies this episode with films about food and wine.
Woohoo!
This was a pretty close race. It was nice to see strong interest in all three films after the shellacking Silverado took last episode.
Oh my God. Multiple patrons literally promised on the Discord server to watch Silverado based on your relentless braying. Okay. Here is how the Food and Wine poll plated. In third place, Pixar's Ratatouille with 24% of the vote.
Jeff, I honestly thought that one would win in
Me
a
too.
landslide.
Taking second place with 33% of the vote, 2022's The Menu, starring Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy.
My wife and I recently watched that, really enjoyed it, and for fans of The Menu, my wife further recommends the 1989 film The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, which is a great title because it identifies the hero, the allies, and the enemies right there on the poster.
And the main course, with 43% of the vote, is the wine-centric road trip buddy film Sideways. Released October 22, 2004, Sideways earned $109 million against its $16 million budget. Wow.
Yeah.
You could fill a Jeroboam with that profit and still have some left over.
Sideways is directed by Alexander Payne. Payne and Jim Taylor collaborated on the script adapted from Rex Pickett's, at the time, unpublished novel of the same title. Payne had read Pickett's book on a plane while on a press tour for his film Election, and upon landing, the story goes, immediately called his agent about purchasing the rights. The novel was only released a month before the film premiered. That's incredible. What a lucky roll of the dice for Rex Pickett.
The film stars Paul Giamatti, Thomas Hayden Church, in his second consecutive appearance on this podcast.
That's correct. He was Billy Clayton in Tombstone last episode.
Virginia Madsen, Sandra Oh, and MC Gainey's Junk, which was not nominated for an Oscar. Though the film was a contender at the 2005 Academy Awards ceremony, a total of 5 Oscar nominations were granted to the film. Church and Madsen received Best Supporting Actor nominations for their performances. Alexander Payne earned a nomination for Best Director, while producer Michael London earned a nomination for Best Picture of the Year. Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. Giamatti snubbed.
Yes.
There are several scenes in this film that to me are Oscar-worthy, and I just will say that he was not snubbed by the Screen Actors Guild, who nominated him for Best Actor and awarded the film the award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast, which I think is super well-deserved and an award that maybe doesn't belong in the Oscars, but certainly in the Screen Actors Guild. And I thought it really was a great ensemble. It's part of what makes this movie so great.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I absolutely agree with that. Giamatti, his performance is so, at some points, effusive, but so much of his performance throughout the majority of the film is so subtle, and it's just little changes in his mouth or his eyes, and it's if you're watching, it's so good.
He is, you really nailed it. He goes from extremely broad physical comedy and huge emotions to just the tender breaking of a man in a moment in a close-up. And that shows incredible range and skill for an actor, which is why, in particular, the fact that he wasn't nominated for an Oscar, there must have been really stiff competition, because this was an unusual role for an unusual actor. He is not a traditional movie star, and in the early 2000s especially. So
I also want to acknowledge the director of photography, Phaedon Papamichael. His work on the film, his shots of the Santa Ynez Valley are part of what inspired my wife and I to travel there in the first place, way back after this movie came out, and ultimately have our wedding in Buellton, where much of the film is set.
I still have my etched glass from your wedding.
Me too. I have one. One has survived all.
All right. Gas up the car. pack up the picnic basket, and prepare your mental thesaurus of olfactory terminology. This is the hero's journey of Sideways.
Act 1 of the hero's journey begins with the world of common day. We see our main character in their status quo normal life. Jeffy Pants, my analysis of this film is a bit of a mess because much like a bottle of wine, it evolves every single day. So
Interesting.
I don't know how you feel about your analysis of this film, but maybe we can discover the notes of this film together.
That sounds wonderful. I'll sit back and just kind of swish that glass, aerate that wine, brings out the flavors, the aromas,
Get your nose
unlocks.
in there. Get your nose right up in there. Just snort that stuff.
Just a flutter of like a nutty Edam cheese.
That's brilliant.
The most pretentious thing I've ever heard. Please continue.
First of all, I love the first hour of this film. Once it becomes about Jack and Stephanie, I sort of lose interest. But the first hour of this movie is almost perfect for me.
Wow.
We begin with a title card Saturday. Miles Raymond, played by Paul Giamatti, and we've already identified as a wonderful performance, is a middle-aged single man living in a one-bedroom apartment in San Diego, California. He's a school teacher, but what he desires most in life, as we will see throughout the film, is wine, of which he is very knowledgeable, becoming a published author, and his ex-wife, Victoria, whom he has not been able to get over in the 2 years since their divorce. I'm just going to say that the character development of Miles is wonderful in this film. The film starts with his landlord waking him up early in the morning, asking him to move his car so the roofers could park the truck. Miles runs out, and we see... when Miles parked the previous night, his front bumper is underneath the car in front of him. He rear-ended this vehicle.
And the back is still hanging off like the curb, like it's blocking the entry. And he just found a not big enough parking space.
And when he moves his car around the corner where he parks, his back end is partially blocking someone's driveway. Like,
terrible.
This is Miles.
Yeah.
He pays no attention to anything except the three things that he's interested in.
Yes. Yeah.
We learn that Miles is very late for something. It's currently 10:54 a.m., which I guess it's not so early in the morning when the landlord wakes him up, like I said it was.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be somewhere by noon. You hear him say, "I'm out the door right now." Cut to him reading on the toilet. He takes a shower. He violently flosses. Violently. It's like he was trying to saw through his upper palate of his mouth.
He becomes a vengeful force
Miles.
against his gums.
He said, "Gingivitis, fuck you." Miles does crossword puzzles with a pen while driving up the 5 freeway.
Yeah. Nice, Miles.
So he drives from San Diego to Los Angeles on completely free-flowing highways, pulls into a driveway of a lovely multi-story home. Now we get to meet Jack, played by Thomas Hayden Church. His fiancée, Christine, her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Erganian. By the way, I really liked the guy who played Mr. Erganian.
Yes. Both the parents.
We're thinking maybe you went the wrong way. You went to Tijuana, and they don't let you back.
It was such a small part, but they did a really great job with it. The lies begin... Actually, the lies continue. Miles says the freeway was bumper to bumper the whole way. It was unbelievable. We saw him multiple times on completely free-flowing, full speed. Folks, the lies in this film, that's what this movie is about.
Yeah.
Scenes of people lying constantly. So it's during this scene now, as Miles and Jack are trying to get out the door, where we learn that Jack is engaged to Christine because they do a little taste the cake scene. And this is when Mrs. Erganian asks about Miles's book deal, because Jack had told them that Miles is being published, which, again, another lie. This isn't true yet.
Yeah.
And Jack says,
"Come on, Miles, don't be so modest. Indulge him. Don't make me out to be a liar."
interesting request from a guy who spins a web of disastrous lies throughout the entire film.
Yes. Yes.
Finally, the guys get out the house. My world of common day is so long.
Okay. Well, you started off with a good comment about the evolving nature of your analysis, because this is not a typical Hollywood movie. The elements of the journey, I think they're all present in really wonderful ways. but not in any kind of conventional way and not necessarily in
Right.
order. And I think a lot of scenes take up, there's like scenes where there's 3 stages of the journey, and then there's 4, 5, 8 minutes of runtime where it's hard to identify anything but character development, and then we jump back into story. So I think it'll be fun to just, like you said, to explore the notes.
Right.
It's like a flutter, just a flutter of call to adventure.
Okay, so as that was good. That was good.
Thank you.
All right, so as the gentlemen are driving away, Miles directs Jack to a box in the back seat containing a special bottle that he picked up last night at the tasting. He's got a hangover. That's why he's late.
Uh-huh.
Now we get a little bit of an idea of how much Miles knows about wine, but also how snobby he is about wine.
That's 100% Pinot Noir. Single vineyard. They don't even make it anymore.
Pinot Noir?
Mm-hmm.
How come it's white?
Oh, Jesus. Don't ask questions like that up in wine country. They'll think you're some kind of dumb shit, okay?
Just tell me.
Also on the drive up, I'm almost done. Also on the drive up, we learn that Jack is not interested in reading Miles' book. He speaks encouraging words to Miles throughout the film about, man, this is really going to happen for you. I know you're going to sell this book. But when it comes to actually reading the work and providing feedback, he's not going to do it. You can't count on Jack for that.
Did you read the latest draft, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
And?
It's great. I mean, it's so many improvements, much tighter. Just seems, I don't know, more congealed or something.
Mm-hmm. What about the new ending? Did you like that?
Oh, yeah. New ending vastly superior to the old ending.
There is no new ending. Page 750 on is exactly the same.
Okay, the final portion of what I thought the World of Common Day was stopping at Mom's.
Yeah, right.
The night before her birthday. Miles doesn't know how old she is. Jack says, "Oh, how old is she going to be?" I don't know, 70 something. He signs her birthday card in the parking lot. When they go inside,
while he's walking, he's like signing it while he's walking.
It's incredible.
It's so good.
She makes them dinner. He excuses himself, steals like $1,000 out of Mom's secret stash in her unmentionables drawer.
Miles.
But he feels guilty about it because he looks up at the top of the dresser and there's a series of family photographs there. There's a photo of a young Miles, who was actually a young Paul Giamatti with his real father, Bart Giamatti. You might, if you remember that name, he was the Major League Baseball commissioner for a number of years.
Wow.
A photo of Miles' sister Wendy with her husband and their 2 twin boys. Happy, perfect, idyllic
family,
American family right there, family unit. A photo then of Miles and his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
Miles' life has clearly not turned out the way he or anybody else had hoped. This is really a sad scene, actually. It's kind of heartbreaking. Then he goes downstairs and Mom offers him money. Oh, no.
Do you need some money?
I'm good, Mom. I just stole it from you.
Can we talk about...
So anyway, it's too late to hit the road. Talk about...
I got to talk about 2 things in the scenes you've just mentioned. The first is that before they have dinner, they're sitting watching TV at Mom's house, and there is a wicker banjo on the wall, like this incredible wicker banjo as a object art on the wall. And my grandmother had 2 wicker guitars in her guest room that
my gosh.
might have been made by the same person. That struck me. And then the other thing is, Mom hides the money in a false-bottomed Ajax canister in her drawer, like not in the cabinet with the other cleaning products where it would be hidden, but
where it would make sense.
If you're a robber and you open that drawer, you're gonna go, I wonder if the cash is in that fake Ajax canister. Also, I was trying to be detail oriented in this movie. At the dinner table, Jack and Miles's mom are drinking Carlo Rossi table wine, like with the jug with the handle. But Miles is drinking white wine out of a margarita glass. He's drinking white wine, and I just thought, in a movie about wine, this says so much about where he came from, his relationship, how he's rejecting his mom is absolutely hammered most of her. And by the way, Mary Louise Burke, the actress who played that, I mean, a little role like that can turn the tone of a whole film. And she, in that scene, really makes room for the broadness of Paul Giamatti's performances later in the movie. And
Correct.
that kind
Good
of,
point.
it's just, oh man, the cast, I'm getting, the hairs on my body are standing up. When the magic of acting can turn a movie like this into something special, and she's really part of that. And she's one of those character actresses who's, if you look on her IMDb, she's still doing stuff every year, but she's not famous. But she's an important part of movies like this. Anyway, that brings us to Call to Adventure. The hero is presented with a challenge that renders them unable to continue living in the comfort of the ordinary world. Miles's ordinary world, as you've established, is wallowing in the aftermath of his divorce and floundering in the confusion and rejection of shopping his first novel.
Yeah.
It's a midlife crisis. Things are falling apart. He's not who we thought he would be. So the call to adventure here is the invitation to leave these things behind and re-embrace life and romance and art and really to re-enter the world after having withdrawn following his divorce. I think the call comes from a couple different places. The first call, I think, really comes from his mother in that dinner scene.
Okay.
When are you going to get married again? She's teasing out, even drunk, dysfunctional mom is ready for Miles to re-enter, right? Now she's coming at it from a bad place of you should get back with your ex and blah, 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 blah. But her desires, I'm worried about you. You need to re-engage. So the next title card is Sunday. They wake up and they sneak out of mom's house. They do not want to spend the day with her. They sneak out. Right. She's passed out on the couch. They have breakfast at this diner, and Jack kind of lays into Miles. He says, "Yes, you've been officially depressed for 2 years. This week, I'm going to get you laid. You need to get your joint worked on." So his call, and coming from Jack, he says at one point, "I'm an actor. All I have is my instinct." He is a man of emotions and instinct and action. And so this is Jack's way of saying, get out of your misery and re-engage in life.
Yes.
His call is more like a demand. And I love this friendship. I love this unlikely friendship. They were college roommates. There's so little they have in common, but they have that past history and they complement each other so well. It's such a brilliant relationship. There's so much story in this movie and so many character moments. So I'm really going to try and just identify the jewels that to me best signify the call to adventure. And those are really the two moments that stuck out to me of these important people in Miles's life saying it's time to leave this ordinary world of misery behind and come to the special world of re-engaging in life.
This brings us to refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, the call to adventure is refused by the hero, or sometimes outside forces work against the hero. In this same diner scene, after Jack says, "I'm going to get you laid," Miles counters with, "This week is not about me, it's about you."
Yes.
He reflects the call to adventure back onto Jack. He says,
"We're going to drink a lot of good wine. We're going to play some golf. We're going to eat some great food and enjoy the scenery, and we're going to send you off in style, Wulfrar."
And Jack says,
"And get your bones smooched."
Which is a spit take worthy line.
Yes.
And his delivery is so perfect.
That was the primary refusal of the call for me. Did you have another point?
I had mentioned mom saying, "When are you going to get married again?" And his refusal there is he says, "I just got divorced." Now, just got divorced is 2 years prior, which for a man in his late 30s, are we thinking at this point? Late 30s, early 40s?
I think they're both in their 40s at this point.
In their 40s. So yeah, 2 years, you don't have 2 years to wallow. You got to get on with your life, which leads us to meeting with the mentor. The hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. Miles is a lost soul, and he gets mentorship from all angles. But I think the biggest moment of mentorship comes from Jack, who gives good and bad mentorship throughout the movie. In that diner scene, which also overlaps Call to Adventure, Jack is trying to teach Miles how to live. The way to re-engage in life is to move on from Victoria. And he says, you were a negative guy in college. You're worse now. You're wasting away. Teaching English to 8th graders? By the way, teaching needs to stop being pooped on by Hollywood as a secondary profession. Go into an 8th grade classroom, try to teach English in a meaningful way. It's profound what those people do. But in the context of this movie, he's seen as this isn't his calling. This isn't what he's good at. He's checked out at work. It's just a way to make money while he writes. he says, what medications are you on? You're in therapy, F that. You need to get your joint worked on. And then also Miles says, yes, I went to my shrink, but mostly I helped him with his computer. Again, tech support. It's not about me. Let's fix your computer. Okay. So I want to skip ahead a little bit. Miles gives Jack and us, the audience, some mentorship. He teaches Jack how to taste wine.
Yes.
Hold it up to the light. Look for the color and clarity. Smell it. Get air into it. It unlocks it. And Jack is chewing gum. So Jack is about fast living, excitement, seizing life, taking the bull by the horns. And Miles is all about subtlety and detail and feeling and appreciating the fine distinctions. And each of them is trying to give the other the best of themselves. And that's the mentor energy of their friendship that persists throughout the movie. Even, I think, to a fault. I think there were a couple too many scenes of them trying to get the other out of their current life. I think you could have cut some of that. But that wine scene is, again, wine is a metaphor, but it's well used in this film.
I aspire to be able to talk about wine like Miles, but I think I'm more like a Jack. Like, I don't know, it tastes pretty good to me.
I don't see that. I see those roles as you may not have a magical palate like Miles does where he can smell the cheese that the winemaker had for dinner the night before when he puts his nose in the glass. But you definitely care and you take the time and you appreciate the distinctions that present themselves to you. I often find myself halfway through a glass of anything before I realized I've been drinking it. And that's because, like Jack, I'm about momentum and drive and getting to the next thing and getting through. And I think there's a lot of parallels as I was watching this movie between Jack and Miles's relationship and your relationship and my relationship. So I don't think you're as neurotic and horrible as Miles, and I don't think I'm as dopey and, sort of wild as Jack. But the way they interact with each other and the way they push and pull each other, I thought, as I'm watching this, I'm like, holy crap, there's so much Dan and Jeff in this movie. And it was fun to watch it again.
I found myself throughout the movie trying to figure out which one of us was Jack and which was Miles. And I think there's a decent enough of both of us in each of them that it was difficult for me to really say, okay, no, I'm Miles and Jeff is Jack. But yeah, no, you're right.
There's just one other mentor moment. Skipping ahead a little bit, Miles and Jack are walking from the motel to the hitching post for their first dinner. And Jack says, you think I'm making a mistake marrying Christine? And Miles gives him the most half-assed advice. He says, it's great. It's time. And then he says, but you got to have your eyes open. That's all. Look at me. I thought me and Victoria were set for life. It's like, well, that was worthless, man. In the same way that Jack isn't reading his book, Miles isn't really paying attention to Jack's plight of his relationship and his struggle to grow up, Yeah. And then he uses Miles as a sounding board for his career choices. Like, I'm not going to give up acting, but I'm thinking about going to work with Christine's dad. So he's making really big life choices right now, and he's looking for Miles's advice and counsel and support. And Miles is just kind of like, whatever, dude, you do you. Okay, that's all I have.
Final segment of Act 1 of the journey is crossing the first threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world. This crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. I think there's a really great visual cue to us, and that is driving through the tunnel into wine country. That is a perfect crossing of the threshold. The fact that it's a tunnel. There is a reason Alexander Payne chose that shot.
And a title card. Santa Barbara County, California. You are entering Oz. You are going through the rabbit hole. Absolutely.
As they emerge, they're driving along a vineyard road, and Miles says, I quote this to Michelle every time she and I drive up to Santa Barbara to go wine tasting.
Of course you do.
And we'll do the thing. Like she'll do the Jack lines and I'll do the Miles lines.
I love you guys so much. I just want to be in the trunk on one of your trips and listen to that happen.
I'll just record it. It'll be a bonus audio content for an episode.
What lines do you say? What lines do you say?
Let's take the Santa Rosa Road exit and hit Sanford first, okay?
Sounds good to me. I need a drink.
These guys make top-notch Pinot and Chardonnay, one of the best producers in Santa Barbara County.
I thought you hated Chardonnay.
No. I like all varietals. I just don't generally like the way they manipulate Chardonnay in California. Too much oak and secondary malolactic fermentation.
Huh.
Oh, you guys! I wish you get a lot of personality out of this podcast, and if you're on the Discord server now, you're going to get a lot more. But this movie there's so much Dan in this movie, and there's so much of this movie in Dan that it was so much fun to watch for that reason and hear all this stuff. All right, Dan, before we begin our day of wine tasting, let's head over to the diner, the Campbell Diner, and get us some coffee and talk side quests.
Listeners, welcome to the Roadside Campbell Diner and Cafe, where Jeff and I take a pause from the road trip, eat some hash browns, have a cup of coffee, and talk about what else we've been up to since our last episode.
I recently finished watching the entire Clone Wars animated series on Disney+.
Whoa, that's an undertaking.
What's more of an undertaking is that I watched every episode with my family. So all four of us had to be available at home together. And I work most Friday and Saturday nights, and my wife has a regular 9-to-5 job, and the kids have school and activities. So we don't get a lot of time. And so every third weekend, we sit down and we just binge Clone Wars. And at the end, the kid's like, can we watch another one? Can we watch another one? And the other night, we just stayed up till 11 till we finished them.
Oh, wow. Both the kids are into it?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
But the thing that I watched is I would not let them. Ami is obsessed, thanks to you, with watching things in order. So she.
Oh, great.
She found this
Why
sheet
do I
of.
feel like you're blaming me for all of this?
Well, it's credit disguised as blame. So we've been watching the Star Wars properties in story order for the most part, trying to catch the kids up. So they had never seen any of the prequels until we decided we were going to watch Clone Wars. I showed them the first two prequels, and then we watched the Clone Wars. So last weekend, we all sat down and watched Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I remember thinking it was the best of the prequels, but still being really disappointed. And after watching the Clone Wars, I appreciated it so much more.
Okay.
Honestly, I think it was on the back of the character development they did in the series. A lot of my enjoyment of Revenge of the Sith came from weight of story and development that's not in the movie. But it doesn't matter because I was enjoying the film. I think
Hayden Christensen?
I think Hayden Christensen is at his best.
Cognitive decline.
I think he is at his best in this film. He has really good moments, but the love story's terrible. Padme is basically just a lady in waiting the whole movie, which is ridiculous. But Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine absolutely eats that movie. He is the best Star Wars villain, and his scenes in that movie are among the best villain scenes in all of the Star Wars filmed entertainment I've seen. I love Ian McDiarmid, I love Palpatine, and I enjoyed watching Revenge of the Sith from beginning to end, particularly for the lack of Jar Jar. I still have big problems with the prequels, but I really enjoyed it having watched Clone Wars. That's what I got for you. Dan.
Okay.
What have your side quests been?
Okay, well, I also watched a series, Yellow Jackets, on Showtime. Have you heard of this show, Jeffy Pence?
No, I don't know this.
This is Lost meets The Craft meets Ladybugs.
Wow, that's a hell of a
In
pitch.
1996, a girls' high school soccer team is flying to the national championships. The plane crashes in the mountains, and the survivors now engage in a Lord of the Flies-like survival. We also flash forward to modern day, where we are introduced to a handful of characters who are the adult versions of the high school girls' soccer team characters that we've met. So we know some of them survived. We don't know. That's the mystery of the show, is who makes it out of that.
Oh my God, that sounds wow.
There's a mystery in the modern day with the adult characters. Someone is trying to blackmail them into revealing the truth of what happened on the mountain, and they are committed to their silence. It's a really, Jeff, it's such a fun show.
It sounds like it's right up my alley.
I think it is. And there's one of the girls is so, you would have been in love with her in high school.
Lots of eyeliner.
Yeah, she's kind of like a punk chick.
I can't wait. That's so cool.
You would have been so in love with that girl in high school.
May have had some emotional problems that were unresolved in high school, guys.
I highly recommend Yellow Jackets. It is on Showtime. Season 2 comes out at the end of March.
All right, listeners, we're going to pay our tab, get back in the Saab, and roll up the coast for Act 2. Act 2 of the hero's journey begins with the road of trials. Now in the special world, our hero makes allies, meets enemies, or meets allies and makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. The clear, unambiguous allies are Gary the bartender, played by Patrick Gallagher, he has 142 acting credits, and a lot of it is video games, which I was surprised by. Jack, played by Thomas Hayden Church, while he does have moments where he works against Miles, I don't think he ever, even from Miles' perspective, I don't think Miles ever sees him as anything else besides his best friend who's just making horrible mistakes. I had him as a shapeshifter for a while, but I don't think that's accurate. I don't think Miles ever sees him as an enemy.
Yeah, agreed. I think the two of them, I don't want to make this about us, but their relationship is much like ours. Like, we're best friends, but we also really piss each other off sometimes.
Yes. I think one of my favorite sayings is, there's something about you I don't like about myself.
Correct.
Miles's mom is 100% on his side, even when she's misled and wrong. And Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir never abandons our hero.
That's correct.
It is there for him from beginning to end. In a romantic comedy, there's this idea that the potential romantic partner is an antagonist, pushing against the hero and forcing them to change.
Oh boy, I was going to say, why haven't you mentioned Maya yet?
So I don't know where to put Maya, because she does shift shapes from Miles's point of view when she calls him on his stuff, confronts him for not having the bravery to tell the truth, and turns away from him.
Yeah.
But it's so, because the shape-shifting is from the point of view of the main character, but I don't think she is. I think she's an ally.
I do too. I've got her as an ally.
I think she's an ally. Okay, good.
She takes him by the hand and leads him.
She is Winery Moses. I think we can call Stephanie a shapeshifter. She goes, yeah. But for one reason, which is after she beats Jack with the helmet, she's riding away and she turns and says, "And F you too." Yeah. And he's like, "Me?
What did I do?"
But that's something that he has to come to terms with, is that his lies and deceptions affect others too. He's not just avoiding blame.
Right.
And then, but certainly Cammy the waitress is for sure a shapeshifter. And we'll get to that. Enemies, Victoria, the haunting ex-wife, I think is maybe sympathetic, but she represents everything that is dark about him. And
not because of her own actions. She does nothing antagonistic to Miles. His problem with her is completely himself.
I would argue that her actions at the end of the film pretty antagonistic.
What?
She lays the
Okay, we'll get there.
Okay, yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there, man, because you got to explain that.
Okay.
But not here. This is not the time for it.
Cammy's husband, for sure.
Oh, hell yeah.
Is an enemy. And Merlot. Merlot is
Yes.
a consistent enemy in this film. Tests. Because this movie isn't terribly plotty, I don't feel compelled to list every plot point in sequence like we often do. Some of the scenes in this movie are just character or for color or for pacing.
Yeah.
It's an art film. So with your permission, I'm going to cherry pick moments, and you can call me out if you think I've made an egregious omission. Jack and Miles go to have dinner at the Hitching Post. Have you been there? Have you been to the Hitching Post? It's a real place, right?
Jeff, you've been there too. That's where my wedding reception was.
Oh my God! I've been to the hitching post!
I'm touched that you remembered.
If you're surprised that I didn't remember, you are deluding yourself about who I am.
I will admit something. When we've been to the hitching post multiple times, my wife and I. On multiple occasions, I have said, "Oh, the ostrich. I don't think I've ever had that." And then I have it, and I remember that I've had it before. So, like, at least three times that's happened.
Cognitive decline. Dinner at the hitching post and their first encounter with Maya. So they get to the bar where we meet Gary, the bartender, and realize that Miles is a regular here. He's a person of status.
Yep.
They know he's that writer, and they want to read his novel. So he plays it off like he's embarrassed and doesn't want to talk about the novel, but everyone he's met knows about the novel, with or without. Jack's never been up here. He's never gone wine tasting up here. So the people that know about his novel, clearly Miles has told them. It's just an interesting little inconsistency in his character that I think is lifelike and real. Jack spots Maya when they're sitting in the restaurant and says, "Check out that chick." And Miles says, "Yes, I know her. I'm up here all the time. This is like my office. She's married. Knock it off." But then Maya comes up and is bright-eyed and happy to see Miles, says, "You look great. Have you lost weight?"
Uh-huh.
And then they have this, awkward, because everything that Miles does is awkward, and she walks away, and Jack's like, "Dude, she's into you. What are you doing?" And finally gets Miles to warm up a little bit. Well, she does know a lot about wine, and she loves Pinot. But no, she's not, she's a waitress in Buellton.
Right.
And Jack goes, "You're focusing on the negative stuff." And this is one point where I think Jack's in the right, because Miles, the way he says that, like she's a waitress in Buellton, like that's not important. Jack has never treated a waiter or a waitress like they're not important. He gives everyone the same amount of attention. Like, "Hi, would I have sex with you? Can we talk? Would you bring me food?" Like, he's like a puppy dog. He just wants to sniff everything, right? So then they go to the bar after dinner, and Maya turns up. And Miles has the guts to say, "Would you care to join us?"
Yeah, pass test.
So Jack gets a win by cracking the veneer of Miles and getting him to talk about this girl, even if only for a short period of time, and say what he likes about her. And then Miles gets a pass for inviting her to join them. Yes.
Yeah.
But then he fails because Jack's talking him up. Is Miles getting his book published? Better. And she says, "What are you guys up to tonight?" And Miles says, "Oh, we're tired. We're going to go back to the hotel." Fail.
The girl is looking to party, and you tell her we're going back to the motel and crash. Jesus, Miles.
Well, I'm tired, Jack. Aren't you tired?
The chick digs you, man.
But this is exactly the function of their friendship, is that Jack is there to hold Miles accountable for his withdrawal.
We didn't mention it. I don't think Maya is Virginia Madsen's character.
Oh, yes, sorry. And she's just lovely in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
So then there's a short Montague, and they meet Stephanie, played by Sandra Oh. And she's such a great free-spirited woman in this movie. She's kind of a hippie. And I love this because Jack is working his charm. He's that guy who's willing to say things that might be inappropriate or uncomfortable enough times that he'll find the person who finds it charming. And it works with her because Stephanie is charmed. And likewise, Miles is being completely authentic Miles. He insults the wine.
I will tell you something. I've come never to expect greatness from a Cab Franc, and this one is no different. It's kind of a hollow, flabby, overripe.
I don't know. Tastes pretty good to me.
And she leans over and says, "I agree with you." He's getting the, wow, he's having integrity. He's not trying to be someone he's not or impress somebody. So I think that's a win for both of them.
She is charmed by Jack, but respects Miles's authenticity about the wine. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, she likes them both. It's about food. Why am I getting emotional right now? This is so stupid. It's about food and wine, but food and wine is such an important part of our social culture. And I think the people who serve us, the people who choose to go into the profession of standing behind that bar or in front of that table and making the offer and then presenting it, there's something so special about that. And I think both Sandra Oh and Virginia Madsen really embodied that generosity of spirit that the people who choose to do that professionally must have to enjoy the job and to really do it well. And in this one short scene, you just get that energy from Stephanie. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sandra Oh learned how to ride a motorcycle for this movie. I'll just put that tidbit
that
out
right?
for free. Yeah.
Huh.
So Miles kills the conversation by saying, "Can we move on to the Syrah?" And Stephanie's like, "Oh, chomping at the bit," and pours him a full Brad Pitt 7 style pour. Just like, "Oh, this guy wants to drink wine? Cool, here's the wine."
Yeah.
And Jack says, "You're a bad girl, Stephanie." And she says, "I know, I need to be spanked." And Jack's like, "All right, I'm in. I'm in love."
Green light.
Green light. So, cut.
Sorry. You were about to cut to something else?
Yeah, I was about to move on.
Okay, I just want to point out that the Stephanie pouring Miles a full glass of Syrah, this is a challenge to Miles. He didn't like the Chardonnay. He didn't like the Cab Franc. I think he's going to like the Syrah. So she just glug, 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 glug.
And again, there's that bartender energy of, you're going to have more than a sip of this, you snobby bastard, because it's good. You know what I mean? Like, right. and like, we've been at Foreman's where, we'll ask, what do you want? And then you're kind of hem and haw. And I've had Tasha go, "I know what you want," and go get the bottle and pour it. And it's great. Because they pay attention. They pay attention to what you like, and they are excited to give you an experience. Okay, I gotta stop. I haven't had anything to drink except coffee too. Okay, so cut to Miles outside being uncomfortable because he can't stand any kind of personal interaction. And Jack comes out having bought 2 cases of wine, and he's set up a double date with Stephanie and Maya, because I forgot to mention. He says, "Oh, we were just having a drink with Maya last night. Do you know her?" And Stephanie knows her, which is kind of the only weird coincidence in this movie.
Not at all.
No?
Not at all.
Oh, really? Everybody knows everybody?
Having spent enough time up there, it's a small community. Everybody knows everybody.
Oh, that makes me like it even more than good.
Yeah.
So it's a pass for both of them. This whole scene is a pass for both of them.
So we're on.
What?
Yeah. She called Maya, who's not working tonight, so we're all going out.
With Maya?
Yeah. She's been divorced a year now, buddy.
The next test, they stop at the roadside, and they're admiring this beautiful vineyard view. And Miles reminisces about a picnic with his ex-wife, Victoria, what a great palate she had. And in Jack's function as the "you must move on," he tells Miles that not only that, which he already knows, Victoria's coming to the wedding, but that she got remarried a month ago. And Miles loses his mind. Emotional tailspin, wants to go back to the hotel. And then Jack says, "No, it's so cool. We've been talking about it. It's going to be fine." So, "You've been talking behind my back?" So he grabs an open bottle from the car, uncorks it with his teeth, and runs off into the vineyard, chugging it as he runs. Broad comedy from Paul Giamatti, completely motivated and authentic.
Yep.
Jack follows him. Jack's not abandoning Miles, even though he's throwing a fit. He's going to follow his friend and be with him there.
Yep.
And then at the end of the scene, Miles reaches out and just sort of holds this bunch of grapes lovingly. It's such an interesting thing.
It regrounds him. It reminds him of why he's there. And Miles loves wine so much that it grounds him to the earth, as cheesy as that sounds. But that's what I got out of that scene. Because it calms him down. Even the music. The music slows down, and it's like this very melodic, soothing lullaby. Yeah, it definitely brings him out of his tailspin. It's a pass for Jack because he gets Miles to at least confront the reality. I think it might be a failure for Miles because he runs away instead of staying with him. Okay, so the double date is the next test. And there's that famous scene outside the restaurant that affected the sales of Merlot for years to come.
Do not sabotage me.
Oh, aye, Captain, you got it.
And if they want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot.
Oh, no, if anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
And Jack says, "I don't want you drinking too much and passing out and going to the dark side. No going to the dark side." So during the date, Jack is flirting, and Maya and Miles are talking wine. And there's this dialogue montage. They're having a great time. They're drinking lots of wine. But we notice Miles is outpacing them all. And it's brilliantly directed because the dialogue is all improvised and incidental, and it's not important. And we see Maya is starting to track Miles's emotional decline. Just in a couple of sideways glances, these shots of a wine glass in the foreground and out of focus Miles, and then she's kind of like, "Oh, wow, how many glasses is that?" Miles gets hammered and he leaves the restaurant and he goes to the payphone and he drunk dials Victoria.
Yep.
And he makes bitter small talk and he tells her, "I'm not going to come to the wedding." And he tells her, "I can't believe you're getting remarried. I thought there was still a chance." So now we get the real vulnerability from Miles. And she says, maybe it's better if you don't come. And he hangs up. Now,
what? There's an important character thing there where she says, maybe it's better if you don't come to the wedding after all. And he says, okay, Vicky, whatever you say, you're the boss. He waited to turn it, and he looks almost self-satisfied when he hangs up that phone.
You're right.
That was him making Victoria be the antagonist in that, so that he can decide to not go to the wedding without guilt because Victoria told him not to.
And we find out later, she's not the big bad guy who ended their relationship. He made a big mistake, and
big boo-boo.
He doesn't own his mistakes. Okay, so back at the table, everyone can tell he's melting down. Stephanie summons Maya for a summit in the restroom, and Jack admonishes him again.
You are blowing a great opportunity here with Maya. Maya, she's great. She's cool, she's funny, she knows wine. I mean, what is this morose come-down bullshit?
Back at Stephanie's, so they go back to Stephanie's, and Jack pretty much takes Stephanie away to seduce her, and Miles and Maya share an Andrew Murray Pinot and talk wine.
It's a Syrah.
It's a Syrah. Oh, my God. You're right. It's a Syrah. How could I get that wrong?
I paused specifically so I could see what wine it was, because I wanted to maybe get it for our drinking segment.
I did too, and I can remember what the wine bottle looks like, and I typed Pinot, but you're absolutely right. It's a Syrah. So he tells her about his novel. She tells him she's getting a master's in horticulture and asks to read his book. And this is so funny. Like, she does this thing where he tastes the wine and says, oh, that's pretty good. And then she tastes it and go, I think they overdid it. The alcohol overwhelms the fruit. And he tastes it again, and there's a delight for him in discovering that she's right, that she taught him something about this wine that even uber wine snob didn't know. But there's also this element of like magnanimous smarminess, like, oh, good girl, yay, you've discovered something I didn't. There's like this energy of like, you pompous because he is such a snob. And what a great choice for him, because the obvious choice as an actor would be just to be impressed and fall in love, and he's kind of like, oh, So then this is this great scene, the great writing, where he gives this great emotional speech about why he loves Pinot.
It's a hard grape to grow, as you know, right? It's thin-skinned, temperamental, ripens early. It's not a survivor like Cabernet, which can just grow anywhere and thrive even when it's neglected. Nah, Pinot needs constant care and attention. And in fact, it can only grow in these really specific little tucked away corners of the world. And only the most patient and nurturing of growers can do it, really. Only somebody who really takes the time to understand Pinot's potential can then coax it into its fullest expression.
Miles is describing himself, but doesn't know it.
Yes, and doesn't know it exactly. That's the crucial point, is he doesn't understand why he loves Pinot so much. He doesn't understand it. So she tells him what she loves about wine, and that it's alive and that it evolves. And then, very bold, she says, but then it peaks like you're 61 and then begins its inevitable decline. And he gets it at that moment that she's talking about him, and he can't take it. She's clearly ready for a kiss. She's put her hand on his, but he withdraws and goes to the bathroom and splashes water on his face. He's shanked the timing on this. And then he goes back into the kitchen. Now he's ready, and he goes to kiss her, and she very politely lets him know, you didn't earn it this time. She kind of pulls away and gives him like this hug. It's a really uncomfortable moment, and she's not rejecting him. But I think she doesn't give him the reward for being brave, because he didn't do it in the moment. He screwed up the timing. So she leaves, and he's driving down the driveway behind her, and she stops the car and gets out and comes back and says, I had a really good time. And it's like she knows, after his admission that he needs tender care, she knows that if she doesn't go back there and give him encouragement and let him know that it's not a fatal screw up, that he'll just withdraw again. So she goes back and says, I had a really good time tonight. And then he, passed test, gives her the novel. Not one manuscript box, but by the way, You cannot sell a 750-page debut novel that's, wow. Anyway.
Right. No wonder nobody wanted to buy it.
So to me, it's a fail for him, but then a pass for him. So he's in the game.
Right. He fumbled, but recovered the ball for a loss.
Yes, but she really helped him along. Yeah, fumbled the ball for a lot. Yeah, that's right. That's a perfect way to put it. So this is my last test. Tuesday, Jack's cell wakes Miles up and it's Christine, and he tries to go back to sleep. Jack gets back to the hotel and, having kissed, now tells.
Yeah.
Stephanie's waiting outside on her motorcycle. Jack's going to ditch his golf date with Miles to go hang out with Stephanie. And Miles is like, what? You're abandoning me.
Yep.
So Miles spends the day by himself. He goes down and eats the continental breakfast. He golfs. He comes back to find Jack bawling Stephanie on the bed. So he goes to the bar.
And they don't stop when he walks in.
No, he's like, not now, not now. And Stephanie doesn't even notice.
He's just waving Miles away. Not now, not now. Oh my God.
And Sandra Oh was married to the director Alexander Payne during this film. Mm-hmm. They did not stay married. So Jack finds him at the bar and tells him about his great. It's because I said bawling. It's like capping. You can't.
Just your choice
well,
of
he
words.
He wasn't getting his bones smooched, so.
Oh.
Join us at the Euphemism Lounge. Okay. So, yeah, Miles retreats to the bar where Jack eventually joins him and tells him about his great day with Stephanie. And Miles finally confronts him. What the F are you doing? You're getting married. And Jack says, well, I might have to put the wedding on hold. I might be in love with another woman. And then he lays out this fantasy of the two of them moving up there and buying a vineyard and becoming partners. Thomas Hayden Church's performance in this scene is so great because this guy's kind of dopey and disconnected with the nature of reality and obligation. And he doesn't play it funny. This guy is really distraught. He is reckoning with the rest of his life on this trip. And in this moment, he is entertaining throwing it all away. He's having that last escape fantasy. I don't disagree with his moral choices, but he really did need to come up here and go through all this in order to go back and really live that life. He needs to grow up, and this is his weekend to do it. And Miles helps him. Before they can really reconcile that, Stephanie shows up and they leave and they go bowling. And Stephanie's mom is like unloading on Miles, the woes of her life and marriage and everything.
Her lame ex-husband.
Right. And then they part ways, and Jack goes off with Stephanie and her mom and daughter. In the most sad sack failed test ever, Miles retires to the motel room with a bottle of wine and the latest issue of Barely Legal magazine.
Yeah. I love that moment where he says, can I get a Barely Legal? The cashier turns around and grabs one, and he says, no, the new one.
The new one.
He's already got the other one at home.
Guys, that's good writing. Okay, so one more thing. You could put it in approach, but because we've got these title cards, I put it here, okay? Which is in a past test, he wakes up and says to himself, no, I'm not going to wallow anymore. And he gets in the shower and he puts on a clean shirt and he goes down to the hitching post and he asks about Maya, but she's not there. So instead, he drinks until past closing and stumbles out of the hitching post to go back to the motel. And that's the end of Tuesday and the end of tests.
All right, we have diverged dramatically now. Let's jump to Approach to the Inmost Cave, where the hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of their quest is hidden. The second half of the double date at Stephanie's place was the Approach to the Inmost Cave for me. Because there are hints of interest in both the romantic and book front, both delivered by Maya. She, in her conversation with Miles, makes him feel wanted. It's the most honest that we've seen Miles.
I agree with that.
And Miles has met or is now getting to know Maya on a much deeper level with this discussion that they have on the back porch of Stephanie's place.
I like to think about what was going on the year the grapes were growing, how the sun was shining, if it rained. I like to think about all the people who tended and picked the grapes. And if it's an old wine, how many of them must be dead by now? I like how wine continues to evolve. Like if I opened a bottle of wine today, it would taste different than if I'd opened it on any other day. Because a bottle of wine is actually alive.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the edge of something bad happening.
Yeah, that vulnerable place, right?
Yeah, he is approaching a point where he's about to fall off the cliff. And so for me, that's why that section is the approach to the inmost cave.
Okay.
So what's your approach to the inmost cave?
So again, there are scenes in this movie that fall in the chronology of these parts of the journey, but which don't necessarily express the pure spirit of that segment of the journey. So chronologically, I had it beginning with Golf with Jack. They kind of reunite. Their friendship is back on social ground, if not actual firm ground. But to me, the big approach is the picnic and the cheese and wine at Stephanie's.
Oh.
Yeah. You see where I'm going now.
I do now, and it's not where I said I knew where you were going before.
Oh, interesting. See, man. I love this. So... Yeah, my ordeal is...
I get strawberries, but not the cheese.
Yeah, my analysis definitely has a flutter of nutty Edam cheese. The foursome are in the car on the way to the picnic that they're going to have. And Maya leans forward and says, "Hey, I heard you came looking for me at the hitching post." So it's her way of, I think, opening it back up. Like, hey, I know you were coming. I'm giving you credit, even though I wasn't there.
Right.
And they go to this boring wine talk, the grapes and I, or something like this guy giving a bloviating speech about wine. Stephanie looks over at Maya like, oh my God, we got to get out of here. This is horrible. So she sneaks them into the barrel room. And Jack and Stephanie go make out, and Miles and Maya talk wine. And then they have their picnic at sunset. To me, the journey is toward romance and re-engaging in life. And the way you move on from a marriage is to start a new romance, which leads us to ordeal. The hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome his worst fear, sometimes actually appearing to die. This is the classical meeting with the goddess. The ultimate adventure, when all the barriers and ogres have been overcome, is represented as a mystical marriage of the hero with the queen goddess. This is a romance. The ultimate test is, can you consummate a new relationship? That is the death of your old relationship. That is putting your ego to death and opening yourself to the possibility of a new relationship. Miles walks Maya to her door, and he has the bravery to put his hand on her shoulder. She turns around, they kiss, she pulls him inside, and the door closes. And Alexander Payne is such an interesting, understated director. There's a couple moments in this movie where he just turns the camera away. But it's a way of saying, hey, we're going to give these people their moment. We don't have to watch this. We don't have to see this love scene.
Right.
That's not what this is about. It's a very simple and short ordeal, but everything that happens next is a result of Miles getting that far and taking that step.
I like that. My ordeal, I'm half an hour behind you at this point now. My ordeal was...
Yes, I definitely had a delayed ordeal in my analysis here. And I thought about that a lot. I did a timestamp analysis, and where you were at was an hour into the movie. It's a 2-hour movie, so it really fits that central turning point.
Right.
I gave myself some permission because this isn't a typical Hollywood movie, so I had to ditch my usual attachment to screenplay page number. One
of my earlier analyses had a point after this being the ordeal. So I was really all over the place.
Yeah, right.
So my ordeal is following that mostly successful date with Maya is Miles's solo day, getting ditched by Jack, doing all that stuff by himself, finally deciding to try to go find Maya, and she's not there. So both of his attempts, I'm going to play golf with my best friend today. I'm going to go try to have a drink with Maya, and both of those fail. He's left alone. We often talk about, well, actually, I guess we don't often talk about it, but one of the functions of the ordeal is the hero having to deal with whatever the thing is by themselves. All of their allies have been stripped away, and they have to be on their own, get through it by themselves. And that's part of what I was seeing happen here in this Tuesday where Miles is left by himself. Concluding the ordeal with the golf with Jack, and as they're leaving, Miles says, I mean, he's really dragging himself down. He says, if you don't have money at my age, you're not even in the game anymore. You're just a pasture animal waiting for the abattoir.
Ouch.
For me, this was a representation of death, where the hero is sort of assassinating himself. Jack has been trying to, you should call Maya. She really likes, Stephanie says she really likes you. Give her a call. And Miles seems to be giving up.
A woman finds out how I live, that I'm not a published author, that I'm a liar, essentially. Any interest she has is going to evaporate real quick. If you don't have money at my age, you're not even in the game anymore. You're just a pasture animal waiting for the abattoir.
Abattoir. What is that?
Slaughterhouse.
So he's lost faith in the potential with Maya and the book. That was the ordeal for me. Those were symbolic deaths that the hero now has to recover from.
I can see where you're coming from.
That brings us to the reward. Having faced their worst fear, the hero seizes the object of their quest. For me, the second double date, was the reward. Maya and Miles end up at Maya's place for the night. That, for me, was the reward for Miles for continuing with Jack holding him up, continuing to press through the difficulties and the depression that he's experiencing, all the self-doubt and the self-deprecating talk. That was the reward for me. But I absolutely understand how it's a meeting with the goddess as well. You can see it that way too. So much like when you taste a bottle of wine, two different people with two different palates are going to taste different things. That's the
Maybe I was chewing gum
beauty.
while I watched
Maybe you were.
Well, my reward is very short and very sweet and simple, which is Miles wakes up at Maya's, and they have this beautiful little MOS scene. They go to a farmer's market.
Yeah.
They're under the tree reading a newspaper, doing a crossword, and then Maya invites him to stay for the weekend. So stay for the weekend. Go to this Bordeaux tasting with me. Miles wants a life and love and understanding, and this quiet moment before the storm is exactly what he wants, man. This beautiful woman who understands wine and will just sit with him under a tree, and they're planning wine like this is paradise for him. So that's the object of Miles's quest, the quest he was so unwilling to go on, and here he is. He's there, man. This is it. All he can do now is screw it up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
And this is, like you said, 25 minutes after the center point in the film, so it's for sure delayed.
Right.
Well, Dan, are you ready for a drink? Should we stumble down the side of the road and head over to the Vogler Vineyards?
Ooh, nice. Well done.
I'll see you there. Welcome to the Vogler Vineyards. You'll hear some classical music in the background. There's three
Great.
buses.
Now I have to find classical music to put underneath this.
3 buses of senior citizens have just pulled up.
Oh,
And
boy.
no, that's not the kind of vineyard we go to. This is a small, family-owned vineyard.
Appointments required for tastings.
The proprietor makes the bar stools himself from the wood of a single dead oak tree that was killed by a bolt of lightning during the thunderstorm of 1944 that created the ash that is now part of the grapes of the wine being served. That is something that totally would be claimed at a winery.
Well, when Napa had their big fires a few years ago, that will affect the flavor of those wines.
Like Maya says, right? What happened the year those grapes were grown?
Yep.
So cool. All right. I have a feeling my choice will be anticlimactic, so why don't I start with I'll start, and then you can reveal your amazing, smart, clever choice. So I knew I wasn't going to go with the Pinot Noir just because I wanted to watch the world burn. So my second thought was, I got to get a Merlot. Just because F Miles. But life's been crazy this week, so I actually sent Ami on a mission to find me the right bottle of wine for this episode.
Okay.
And
Wow.
she called me from Bevmo and she said, I don't have a Merlot and I don't have a Pinot, but I have what I think is the perfect wine. It's from Dow Wineries in Paso Robles.
Uh-huh.
It is a red blend called Pessimist. And
That's good. Good job, Ami.
And the
Well
bottle
done.
is like a tree floating on a piece of torn earth over a black void. So it's a beautiful piece of
Jeez.
art. And I'm going to read you from the website. The 2021 vintage delivers a stunning blend. The wine is powerful and intensely aromatic out of the glass, presenting fragrances of blueberry, boysenberry, and black plum, and just a flutter. No, secondary layers reveal elderberry, truffle, cocoa, and cardamom spice, accented by hints of eucalyptus, leather, cherry pipe tobacco, and grilled meats. Now, I'm not done. Broad and expansive on the palate, it bestows lush, generous flavors of black cherry, blueberry creme de cassis, and damp forest floor. Hints of lavender, anise, black olive, ripe fruit flavors. Massive in weight, yet elegantly structured, this wine is a powerhouse that reveals itself gradually, yet deliberately, not unlike this film. It finishes smoothly with leisure and length on notes of blackberry, espresso bean, and pomegranate. How could you possibly
That
have
is-
this is perfect for this movie because it's just there's no way. I mean, it might as well say a flutter of Edam cheese, right? I mean, that's just ridiculous. So I'm gonna cleanse my palate.
Peanut dust.
Yeah, peanut dust and the tears, the lamentations. So here we go.
Remind me what the grape varietal is.
Oh, sorry. It's 76%. 76%.
Almost 76%.
What is wrong with me?
As in pretentious.
76% Petite Syrah, 12% Zinfandel, 10% Syrah, 2%, I'm going to mess up this pronunciation of this, Lagrine, 14.9% alcohol. Okay.
Listeners, drop a comment below and
How
let
do
us
you-
know how to pronounce whatever word Jeff was just saying.
Okay, so it's dark, black almost. I mean, there's no light shining through it. I'm going to tip it. It does not get lighter or fade away. It is just
Color saturation
vampire
is solid,
blood. Yes.
right to the edge.
I see it's got some legs, but not even just dripping legs, just like a solid coat. Okay, I'm putting my nose in it. Plum and blackberry. I get that. I smell the cacao too. I get the elderberry. Ami got us these elderberry gummies for
I don't even know what elderberry smells like.
Well, I didn't either, but she got us these elderberry gummies for immune support, and I smell that. All right, now I can't smell anything new, but I'm really proud that I got blackberry, cacao, and elderberry out of that, and I can't wait to taste the cherry pipe tobacco. I know that's pretentious, but my step-grandfather, the woman that my grandmother married after my mom's dad died, Grandpa John, he smoked cherry pipe tobacco, and that scent immediately takes me back to his lake cottage on Lake Wawasee in northern Indiana. So
wow,
I'm prepared for a sensory overload. Here we go.
You guys, he's doing the thing he makes fun of me for. He's swishing it and chewing it.
I got to do it again. I'm trying to decide if I'm imagining the flavors or if I'm actually tasting them.
Well, there was so much listed on the back of that bottle. You probably are tasting it.
Oh, this is delicious.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I get plum. I get the blackberry, maybe a little bit of the espresso bean. I don't taste the elderberry that I smelled. I don't taste that. I don't get cardamom or truffle.
I don't know that I could identify the scent of cardamom. I don't know, or the flavor. I don't know, have enough experience with that.
And maybe a little bit of pomegranate. Wow, I'm really glad I took the time to read the label because it impacts what you smell, I guess, or what you taste. I'm gonna have one more sip here.
Yeah, the challenge would be to smell and taste and see if you get any of that, and then look at the tasting notes. To see if you agree. But the tasting notes are there to help you identify what you're smelling and tasting that you might not have a connection to. You know, you might smell something but not be able to identify it. Like, it's familiar, but I can't put my finger on it. But then if it says black cherry, then you're like, oh, that's exactly what that is.
Well, I'm not a big wine drinker. I do enjoy red more than white, although the last time I was at an event where they were serving white wine, I had a glass of Pinot Grigio that was just stunning. I was like that really fancy high-end party, and a winery was there, and they were pouring, and I'm sure it was a $100 bottle they were pouring from, and it was like butter and velvet and grape. It was delicious. But this is really, really good. And I even watched a video about the wine.
Oh.
And they said perfect wine for steak. This would really bring out the meatiness and be a great contrast to the saltiness of a steak. I am enjoying this glass of wine a lot. So, Pessimist by Dow. I highly recommend it. The 2019 is hailed as like the magic year, but this is the 2021, and I doubt I would be able to tell the difference.
You might.
I might. I did not pour myself a Brad Pitt pour, but I was not shy with it. It's been a week.
My selection, when Miles and Jack get to Buellton for the first time, the first night they have dinner at the Hitching Post. They sit at the bar with Gary the bartender, and Miles explains to Jack that they make their own wine here that's just fantastic.
Oh.
After dinner, Maya joins them, and she orders
Highliner.
A Highliner.
Highliner.
Hey, Gary. Highliner, please.
You got it.
That's on us.
So I have a bottle of Hitching Post Highliner from 2019.
Oh, Dan.
I also looked for the Bien Nacido, but it was not available.
No 61 Cheval Blanc for you?
The Bien Nacido is the one that Gary pours for Miles and Jack at the very beginning. So if we hold this up to the light, it is not, you probably can't see it, but there's a window right over there. So I can kind of hold it up to the window.
Yeah.
And I can see that it's dark, but not completely opaque.
I can see through it just a little bit. And that's a Hitching Post glass you're drinking from as well.
Yes, it is you can see the logo there. When we were up there, we got a couple of glasses from them. So I am all Hitching Posted out. All right, let's see what, I tip it. Forgot to tip it. So it does diffuse just a bit. I mean, there's like less than a millimeter of a border around the edge of the wine. The color dissipates very quickly to an almost clear. Let's smell this. Quit talking about it.
When do we drink it?
And unlike you, I do not have tasting notes in front of me, so I'm on my own. I don't want to sound like an asshat, but I do get cheese. But I would say I wouldn't say it's a flutter of nutty Edam because I don't know what that smells like. But I do get a hint of cheese. Damn it!
That is perfect.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else. It's not real fruity.
Can I tell you what I found on the internet?
Leathery.
Yes, that's in
the
notes.
Of leather.
That's in the notes. I love it.
Okay, that's all I'm getting. Leather and cheese right now. So let's see if and this has been open for. I opened it before we started recording this, so it's been about 15 minutes now. So okay, so there's a tartness to it, which makes me think raspberry rather than blackberry. It's almost like have you ever eaten a strawberry that wasn't quite ripe?
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm getting. It's definitely berry, but it is tart. So tell me what notes you found on the internet.
Could that be black cherry or plum?
I don't think so.
What it says here is the 2019 Pinot Noir Highliner. The notes are black cherry, plum, cloves, leather, mocha, and incense.
Well, I don't eat incense, so I don't know what that tastes like.
It tastes like church. It tastes like Catholic. It tastes like mass.
Clove. There is a little bit of but there's there's some kind of spice, but it's not at all prominent enough for me to go, oh, that's a clove.
What is it called when the wine is astringent and it sucks the moisture out of your tongue? What does that indicate about the wine?
That's tannins.
Tannins, okay.
Which is a compound transmitted from the skins of the grape into the wine.
And so a dark wine, a super dark wine, you'd expect that from?
Yeah, maybe. They don't all, because they're not all tannic. But
salivating profusely.
This isn't very tannic at all. There's no legs, almost.
Oh, really?
When I swish it around.
And
I stop.
What's the alcohol percentage?
Well, okay, no, I'm lying. I see it now. Little ropes. Alcohol content is 14.2. God, the leather scent is such a strong scent in this one.
Wow.
It's interesting. It's almost like when you buy a new pair of shoes, leather shoes.
Yeah.
You open your shoe box and then you just hit in the face with that leather smell.
What is that? Do they put leather in the wine? Like, how does that?
No. It's
an artifact that, like,
No. It's from the soil and also from the barrel that the wine is aged in.
They don't take Grandpa's leather jacket that he wore when he was smoking cherry pipe tobacco and toss it in the oak cask.
No, just tamp it down with a pole.
Cut a strip of it.
No. Initially, it's from. Oh God, there's another pretentious word, terroir, which is the kind of the flavor of the land.
Yeah. From
which the vines grow, and then the barrels that are used to age the wine. All of that mixed together,
Dan,
will have an effect on the scents and the flavors of a wine. That's why a wine from the same grape from Santa Barbara County will taste different than the same grape grown in the Burgundy region of France. It's
your knowledge of wine improves my experience of drinking it, so you don't ever need to apologize or be embarrassed by that. It's value add.
Okay, good.
Likewise with whiskey, I enjoy it more. Even when I'm drinking just a glass of Maker's Mark, I enjoy it more because every time I taste alcohol, every single time, Dan, you're the first thing I think of.
Aww.
And what you would say, and then the second thing I think of is Corey Mansky and what he would say.
Uh-huh.
So when I drink it, it connects me to my friends, and it makes me think and stop and savor the moment, which is something that Jack needs from Miles, and it's something that I need from you. The mindfulness that you practice when you drink alcohol, it's a meditative, contemplative practice that I forget. Sometimes I'll get halfway through a glass of whiskey and go, hang on, dude, taste what you're drinking.
I'm glad to hear that. And it's something, the reason that my self-deprecation comes from the fact that I recognize that there's so much to know about the wines and the beers and the whiskeys, how they're made, where they're made, and all of that changes the flavor. And I just feel like it's overwhelming. And I don't know a fraction of a percent of what there is to know. And so it feels like anytime I say anything about the scent or the flavor of a whiskey or a wine, it's imposter syndrome. That's exactly what it is.
Yes, it is.
Because there's thousands of people who are either going to tell me that I'm wrong about it or just know way more about it. Like all those notes that you listed read off the back of your bottle.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make that stuff up. They do tastings,
super tasters, yeah,
and somebody came up with all of that. People who have palates and noses that are that sensitive, it's incredible. I'm so envious of those people.
Yeah, they have access to sensory experiences that we do not.
Correct. Yeah.
But I will say that same thing applies to literature for me. People assume that because I have published a novel that I must know something more about stories or books than they do. And I look at the list of books that I haven't read.
Right.
I haven't read Moby Dick, and I feel like what right do I have to sit down and type a word? I haven't read Moby Dick. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And there's 1,000 more books like that I haven't read. And I'll talk to one of my writer friends who has an MFA. And they've read, the entire Steinbeck catalog, and I'm like, oh my God, right. I read 2. Does that count? Can I check Steinbeck off? Anyway,
we have some patrons in our Discord who seem incredibly well read and like way more educated than we are. And I'm like, you listen to us? Like,
it's
you like
so
us?
It's the Discord.
Like, I don't know anything.
For those of you patrons who are on the Discord, like, it's been so humbling for me just to read how thoughtful, well-read, well-watched. I am constantly humbled that you guys listen to us talk about stories.
Same.
It's astounding. And
But it's a little uplifting too. We have to allow ourselves that like, wow, these people actually like listening to. Well, there's some value in what we're saying.
Yeah. These people this is our tribe. This is our tribe of people who love and think about stories deeply. And so
correct.
Yes. That's my big takeaway from the Discord is these are our people. We found our people. And that's the most rewarding part of doing this podcast.
So I guess we'll end this segment with a toast to the listeners and to the patrons who make this such a fulfilling and challenging and humbling and rewarding endeavor. So cheers to all of you. Thank you.
Flutter of Venezuelan beaver cheese.
I should probably spit out my gum if I'm going to. Oh, spit take. Oh, keep it in.
I got it.
Swallow it.
All right, let's get into Act 3. Act 3.
I am going to pour myself a little more of this highliner, though.
Oh, I was so excited that you named highliner because I actually noticed, you're a more detailed guy, but I noticed that when Miles goes back, that's what he orders. He orders a highliner because he heard Maya order it when she came to the bar.
And that's why he ordered a full bottle.
That's right. The road back. The hero is pursued by vengeful forces he disturbed when he seized the object of his quest. Now listen, my ordeal is the consummation of his relationship with Maya. The vengeful forces here are wrought because of choices he's made throughout the film, not just seizing this reward, but by consummating his relationship with Maya in a romantic situation. When you make yourself vulnerable, there's a certain implication of the promise of honesty and authenticity that you make.
Yeah, and I think that is. I'm interrupting you.
No, we're having a conversation.
No, but this is your segment. Like, you're still even introducing the segment. And I'm already getting in your face. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
That this is specific to Miles and Maya. Jack and Stephanie do not care about having a deep conversation. That's why every time we see them together, they're making out or buck naked screwing on a motel bed. When we see Miles and Maya, they're having reasoned, intelligent conversations. And so when they consummate their relationship, there's more of a deeper meaning to that than just, I'm up here for a week, I'm going to find a hot chick and I'm going to screw her.
Yes.
That's what Jack is doing. Miles, as you've said, is looking to heal.
Yes, and the betrayal is that much deeper for that reason. There are lies and promises and conversations and disappointments between Jack and Stephanie that we don't witness, but their courting is the lovemaking. For Miles and Maya, that's a much more protected place that they don't go unless it's really right. And so the betrayal is so much deeper. So
yes,
this is Magic Flight having stolen the treasure from the dragon because he didn't earn getting the treasure. He stole it. He wasn't honest. He's lied. He's kept things from her. And so though he's earned it with his vulnerability, there's an element of, and she even says it in a later scene, you didn't tell me that he was getting married because you wanted to me first. And she's absolutely right.
Yes.
And Miles doesn't even take responsibility for it because he doesn't see that as his problem. That's Jack's problem. He shouldn't have to be, he doesn't take responsibility for that part of himself. We've talked about a movie with multiple heroes. They're all one being. They're all psychological functions of one whole person.
Yeah, pieces
and if you guys,
of one pie.
Yeah, if you guys haven't read The Writer's Journey by Vogler, now's a great time to do it with this movie because he talks about the Wizard of Oz. I always had a problem with the Wizard of Oz because Toto saves the day. And I thought, oh, that's so Jar Jar. Like
Doggy ex machina.
Doggy ex Yes. But Toto represents Dorothy's instinct in the same way that the Tin Man represents her heart and the Scarecrow represents her brains. So Miles isn't owning the impulsive part of himself. He's blaming it. So anyway, Miles F's up. Maya invites him to stay. She's putting herself out there. She's being vulnerable. I want you to stay for the weekend.
Right.
Come to this Bordeaux tasting with me. It's expensive, but I would go if you would go. And he says, no, we got to get back for the rehearsal dinner. Oops. Now, to Miles' credit, he doesn't intentionally rat on Jack, right? So there's some loyalty there. He just F's up. It just comes out in the moment because he's comfortable with her. He's got nothing to hide.
Yes, exactly.
Cut to, she's walking toward the car, take me home. In the car, on the way home, she confronts him for not telling her. He has no defense. And then when they pull up to her apartment, she looks at him and she gives him a chance to explain. She stays in the car with him long enough, looking at him like she wants him to have a reason that will satisfy her. And she says, I'm not Jack. I'm his freshman year roommate from San Diego State, which is a huge cop-out and honestly a huge betrayal of his friendship with Jack. They've been friends for 25 years. He's the best man in his wedding. He's been apologizing for Jack and covering up for Jack, and Jack's been in his corner. Like, what a dick move. This is such the weakest part of Miles. And she looks at him like, not good enough, and gets out of the car and walks away. So, vengeful force number one, you stole the treasure, you shoplifted the booty. But then there's this oddly kind of delayed reward when he gets back to the hotel. Jack is just like so proud of him. You did it. You got some. And he's like all up in his like physically trying to hug him. Let me love you. Let me love you.
He throws Miles on the bed and gets on top of him and starts nuzzling him. He's like, who's my big boy?
That's so great. And of course, Miles is experiencing a host of feelings. He's feeling guilt for having lied, humiliation, guilt for having blown Jack's cover, right? But also there's like this undertone of like, yeah, I'm celebrating, like this is my, like there's this like so many complicated, like the palette of his emotional wine at this moment is complex, right?
Yeah.
Of course, Jack's like, details, come on, let's go. I want to hear it. And he won't tell him. And then Miles, it's funny, but again, the performance from Thomas Hayden Church, he's like, oh, are you gay? You're gay? He's like, no, I'm not gay. And then he's like, oh, you had trouble performing. Listen, man.
Yeah.
So he's like, Jack understands sex and sex problems and the problem, and he's all about, I'm going to help you. I'm your friend. We're going to get through this, whatever it is.
Yeah, the only options are that Miles is gay or couldn't get it up.
Yep.
Those are the only two possibilities of what.
And then Christine calls, and Jack blows her out. Sorry, honey, I can't talk. Miles is having one of his freakouts. He's right there. So then Jack, bless his heart, tries to do what he thinks Miles would want and takes him out for a wine tasting, but he goes to Frass Canyon, which is the wrong place. They have a classical guitar. There's a wine fountain. Like they are pumping their wine through plastic tubes, and just come on.
Merchandise.
Yes, polos and hats.
Yeah, logo polos. That's fun to say. Logo polo.
Logo polo. It's everything.
Those of you at home, if you're listening, just to try it. Logo polo. Logo polo. You just smiled, didn't you? You're having fun, aren't you? You're still saying it because it's fun. Logo polo. Jeff, do you know what frass is?
You know what? I did until you just asked me because I looked it up.
Insect poop.
Oh God. Okay. Yes, that's right. So then
Frass Canyon.
Miles is just as eloquent in describing how bad the wine is.
Tastes like the back of a fucking LA school bus. Now, they probably didn't de-stem, hoping for some semblance of concentration. Crushed it up with leaves and mice, and then wound up with this rancid tar and turpentine mouthwash bullshit. Fucking raid.
Tastes pretty good to me. Look, they have a reserve Pinot.
So Miles takes a break from this horrible tasting to call his agent, and the publisher conundrum, who he's been waiting to hear back from, has passed.
Yeah.
Now, Jeff Garvin writer moment. Everything his agent tells him is everything an agent tells you when it gets passed. They liked it, but they don't know how to market it. It was a tough choice. It's a fabulous book with no home. No one has any guts anymore. It's not about books. It's about marketing. All of that has always been true in publishing for all time. That is what agents say. And I feel attacked by this movie, and I want my money back.
You're going to have a little chat with Rachel about this, because she's going to hear this and go, hey.
She doesn't listen to our podcast, but I will say, a good agent will give you the real deal. And I think Evelyn does. I think she tells him the truth. She wouldn't have sent this book out to all these people unless she really believed in it. And it is like, the book business is tough, but that's not the point of this scene. The point is, this is rock bottom for Miles.
Yeah.
He's lost his girl, and now the nail in his writer career coffin. He goes back into that winery and goes up to the tasting counter as though it's a bar and says, "Can I get a pour?" And the very nice man who's working at the corporate winery or whatever pours him an appropriate amount, and he and walks away. He knocks it back.
Pounds
Hit me
it.
again.
Yeah.
And the guy looks at him like, "Okay, all right, I'll give you another one." And then he says, "Hit me again." And "Sir, this is not a bar. Why don't you buy a bottle?" And so he takes the bottle, fills up his wine glass, and then the bartender's like, "Nah, I'm not letting you take this glass." So they fight over it, and then it splashes on him. Then in a full meltdown, hilarious, gross scene, he takes the what do you call it? The dump bucket? The
dump
spit
bucket.
So no one spits it anymore, right? They dump out the glass that they don't want to finish it, or do they spit?
No, people do spit into the dump bucket, because if you're doing a wine tasting, particularly if you are a wine journalist or you're trying to really do a comprehensive analysis of a lot of different wines or a lot of different wineries, you don't want to swallow the wine because then you get drunk.
Which affects your ability to taste it.
Wow, which you expect affect. Wow, I'm doing it now. Affects your cognitive ability. So
decline.
people do spit. They'll swish it and and then they spit it into the dump bucket.
When you go wine tasting, you don't do that, right? You're drinking the wine.
No, I'm there to drink the wine.
You're not there to.
No, I'm not a journalist.
Miles, when he tastes the wine he doesn't like, he dumps the rest of it out contemptuously, as if to say, this isn't even worth drinking. Right. So he grabs this spit bucket and just upends it, chugs it. It's splashing on his face and his shirt, and he throws it down. And of course, Jack comes in. He's like, hey, come on. Okay, I'm going to take some eyes. His mother just died. More lies, right?
Another lie, yeah.
Miles is now a vengeful force on himself. So then they retreat to the beach, and they're sitting on a bench, and Miles I'm not a writer. And Jack is trying to cheer him up, but Miles says, "I'm not even worth killing myself." And Jack's like, "What?" And then Miles mentions all these famous writers that died by suicide. And Jack's like, "Yeah, but what about the guy that wrote Confederacy of Dunces?"
He killed himself before he was published. Look how famous he is.
But that's like a perfect Jack moment. He just wants you to feel better. He doesn't want you to kill himself, but he doesn't realize what an idiot he's being.
Jack's like a puppy. He's dumb, but he really wants to please you.
I'm a smudge of excrement on a tissue surging out to sea with 1,000,000 tons of raw sewage.
See? Right there. Just what you just said, that is beautiful. A smudge of excrement. Surging out to sea.
Yeah.
I could never write that.
Neither could I, actually. I think it's Bukowski.
So they get back to the motel, and there's Stephanie, and Jack pulls this big teddy bear out of the giant, you want it at the fair stuffy. Look what I got. Look what I got for our favorite girl. And Stephanie walks up and pounds him in the face with her motorcycle helmet. Just swings it like a mace, just crack right on his face. And then proceeds to continue to beat him and say, "I hope you die." And then she gets on the motorcycle and yells, "F face," and then looks at Miles and, "You too." And Miles like, "Me?" By the way, this whole scene, she is wearing a t-shirt with the peace symbol on it.
Yep.
So she rides away.
Her chakra is out of balance.
She is for sure a vengeful force on Jack, but also on Miles, because she knows because Miles let it slip. And now his betrayal is apparent to Jack.
You fucking told Maya, didn't you?
No, I did not. No, I did not. It must have been Gary at the hitching post. I think we mentioned it to him the first night.
Oh, did we mention it? You mentioned it, asshole!
Throws Gary the bartender under the bus.
The guy who's been the nicest to him throughout.
We are not at this point in the film proud of our friend Miles.
Right.
So gets to the hospital, really funny moment where Miles is sitting there reading a magazine about like erogenous zones on men, and he kind of cocks an eyebrow.
Cosmopolitan.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then he goes to the payphone and calls Maya to say what a great time he had with her. And then it devolves into him inviting her to his pity party for not being published.
Well, he's coming clean, though. This is his attempt to tell the truth. It's posthumous, but
That's a great.
he's trying to be honest with her now.
Yeah, but he could have
But
said,
it's too late.
you know what? I lied to you about Jack because I was trying to protect him and I wanted you to still like me and I shouldn't have. That's coming clean. Saying my book didn't get published. Okay. He's admitting he was lying, but he's not. She doesn't care about that. She cares about the other thing. So
Okay.
I think it's a pity. He
right.
still hasn't owned it yet. So Jack and Miles go out to dinner at a barbecue, like a ribs joint, and Jack hits on the waitress. He's hitting on the waitress, and he's objectifying her for being a chubby girl. This guy's unstoppable. He's really just.
Oh my gosh, seriously.
He's he just got his face bashed in.
He's still got the bandage over his broken nose. Yeah.
He's still in pain from that. He came back from the hospital. Anyway, Jack says, hey man, Cammy gets off in an hour. I'm going to wait around, make sure she gets home safe. And Miles is like, are you kidding me? And this is a moment I did not expect from Jack. He puts his hand on Miles' shoulder and says,
You're my friend, and I know you care about me. And I know you disapprove, and I respect that. But there are some things that I have to do that you don't understand. And you understand literature, movies, wine, but you don't understand my plight.
wow. That is the most self-aware thing Jack has said.
It felt a little insincere, though.
Really?
Like he's making this thing up. He's saying it because he knows Miles will buy it, but I don't think he really believes it himself.
I think in that moment when he's smiling and Miles says, "Are you serious?" and Jack's smile stays on his face, but it goes a little bit blank. I think this is a moment when
He is an actor.
I think Jack. I interpreted it differently. I got it that Jack. This is something that Jack knows Miles doesn't get about him, and he wishes Miles would be like that about his book. Like, of course I'm not reading your book. I don't understand your book, and you don't understand why I'm a womanizer. Friday, there's a pounding on the door in the motel, and Miles wakes up from a dead sleep, goes to the door, open the door, and there's Jack completely naked and begging for Vicodin. He has boned the wrong waitress, and her husband walked in on them and chased him out, and he ran 5 kilometers through an ostrich farm to get there. And Miles cannot stop laughing. The idea of ostriches pecking at his bits as he runs barefoot through a field just kills him. Jack says, we got to go back and get my wallet. I left my wallet there. And Miles is like, laugh like, no, it's okay, man. You left it in a bar. It happens all the time. Jack's like, no, you don't understand. Our custom-made wedding rings are in, and he melts down. I can't lose Christine.
Yep.
If I lose Christine, I lose everything. You got to help me. Say you'll help me. And Miles is like, oh, wow, okay.
This felt authentic to me. This was Jack really breaking down and saying, you got to help me.
But also, too little too late. He needed validation at that point because he'd lost Stephanie.
Yeah.
So only when he's been rejected by 2 women does he suddenly realize he needs Christine. And this was the moment where I really I was sad. But, I like movies where everyone's not perfect. But Jack, man, I get the feeling that he's going to cheat on Christine.
Oh, yeah.
Now we have the caper sequence. I personally love capers. They get to Cammy's house. There's some fun tidbits about that location in the tidbits. They get to the house. Miles sneaking into the house, and it's just trashed and gross.
It's awful.
And of course, he sneaks down the hallway, and he hears Cammy and her husband going at it. And clearly, this is something they've done before where she picks up a guy and gets caught doing it, and then they have fake angry makeup sex.
Right.
And it's so great because it's such a surprise and it's so funny and gross. And he sneaks into the room, he spots the wallet on the top of the dresser, grabs it, but Cammie's husband sees him and chases after him. So he's running to the car, Jurassic Park style, the T-Rex right behind him, barely gets in the car.
Oh my God, the T-Rex.
Driving down the road and the guy's chasing him.
Props to MC Gainey for going full frontal on this one. I mean, he uses his penis on the window like a windshield wiper. It's just, it's like right in Miles's face as he's trying to get out of there.
It's an image. Funny.
It is
and
an image.
Shocking and brave, and what a great performance. Alexander Payne. If you haven't seen Election, it's worth seeing it.
I love that movie.
His movies are about horrible people that face their consequences, but they're human. And you see your own failings in them.
Yes.
They leave Buellton and they're heading south. They stop for gas. And Jack says, "You should invite Maya to the wedding." Miles, maybe that's not the right move. And Jack keeps pestering Miles to let him drive. He's like, "Fine, well, you can drive." And then he says, "Put on your seatbelt," and then drives Miles' car into a tree because Miles said that his nose injury looked like a car accident. So he drives into the tree, but it doesn't look bad enough. So he backs the car up and puts a cinder block on the gas pedal. The car lurches forward, misses the tree completely, and goes into a ditch.
Hey, mission accomplished.
So this is Jack building himself an alibi because he knows that when he gets home, Christine's he needs to turn anger into pity. So they return to Brentwood. They carry the wine to the porch. They hug it out. And Jack asks Miles, "Please wait in the driveway long enough so that Christine can see the car." So she buys my story.
Yep.
And Christine and her parents come out and they fuss over him. And Miles looks on. And his expression is sad and complex, and it's impossible to know exactly what's going on in his mind. It's like envy that after all that, Jack has somebody that he knows he's marrying into wealth, and he's getting love and attention. And after all of that, Jack still gets that, and he doesn't, and he's feeling lonely because he knows his friend is getting married, and that means he's going to have less time with his friend, and it's just all of that.
This is one of the scenes that I noted. Paul Giamatti's performance is so subtle that if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss it. You see the pain on his face, but it's not overt.
He's an extraordinary actor. I remembered him being good when I saw this movie when it came out, but watching it again and how strongly it holds up. All right, so that's where I ended The Road Back.
Which brings us to the resurrection. The hero faces death one more time in a final battle or showdown. The wedding of Jack to Christine is the final battle. Really, it's the aftermath of that when Miles is in the parking lot and Victoria and her new husband walk up behind him. This is the scene that he predicted.
Everybody's just going to be holding their breath, waiting to see if I get drunk and make a scene.
And Miles wins that battle because despite his pain, which you can clearly see on his face, he's gracious. He is welcoming to Ken. He compliments Ken. He learns Victoria is pregnant. He tells Maya earlier, that's the one unpolluted part of my divorce. There were no kids involved. So he feels, you can see it. He feels like he failed in that way. They were married for 8 years.
When actors play scenes like this, they often make choices about their own life, about what they're hearing someone else say. And I would love to have a glass of wine with Paul Giamatti and ask him what was going on with him in that scene, because whatever it is the nail in the coffin of a dream. Because there's something about being married to Ken and whatever, and he owns a restaurant, but when she says I'm pregnant, it's like just a stake goes through him. And he's so brave, and he says, "Oh, that's beautiful. I see. Yeah, that's great." And I wept watching that scene. I felt his pain so deeply because it was inevitable. It wasn't a surprise. It's just like this is the end of the end of the end of the dream. You are not the one. And that is a painful thing. After everything, after losing his potential relationship with Maya, after the book not being published, this is the death of the ego. It is over. He has nothing.
So what's happening with your book?
Universally rejected. Strike 3.
Oh, Miles, that's awful. What are you going to do?
Back to the drawing board, I guess. Or not. I don't know.
That brings us to Return with the Elixir. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. The elixir here being a 1961 Cheval Blanc. After this showdown with Victoria, he gets in his car, and for the third time in the film, we see from overhead a shot of Miles's red Saab coming out of a parking lot and turning the opposite way from the rest of the traffic. He drives from LA back to San Diego and grabs something from the closet, drives to a fast food place, and he's having a burger and onion rings, and he takes a slug of something out of a giant 32-ounce styrofoam cup, and then we cut to under the table. He's opened the 61 Cheval Blanc, and he's drinking it out of a styrofoam cup while he eats a burger and onion rings. Yep. And even under those circumstances, when he knocks the wine back, you see this look of ecstasy, just like, oh, this is so good.
That's a callback to the conversation that he has with Jack, again, overlooking that vineyard, when he's reminiscing about his marriage to Victoria and what a wonderful palate she had. And we had a picnic on this spot where we had a 95 Opus 1 with smoked salmon, which, would destroy the flavor of the wine, pairing that, because, smoked salmon it's such an overpowering flavor. He says with smoked salmon and something else that I can't remember. Smoked salmon and something else.
Asparagus.
Once we had a picnic here and we drank a 95 Opus 1 with smoked salmon and artichokes, but we didn't care.
But we didn't care because it was about the moment. It was about having this incredible bottle of wine. It didn't matter that we were having something that didn't pair with it well. We were together. We were sharing this amazing bottle of wine.
I was proud of Miles in this moment because there was something about the surrender of his snobbery, and there was something in his acceptance of Maya's comment.
The day you open a 61 Cheval Blanc, that's the special occasion.
And she's trying to teach him, no fade but what we make. Like, you have to. And so the fact that he eats onion rings and a burger is kind of like him recognizing it doesn't have. What makes it special is your choice to drink it.
Right. That's the second half of the point I was about to make.
After this sad sack scene, he's in his classroom. He dismisses the class. He gets home. There's no mail in the mailbox. There's nothing sadder than getting no mail.
You're so insignificant that not even a credit card wants to offer you 29.9% on a...
So sad. But there is a message on his answering machine.
1. New message.
Hello, Miles. It's Maya.
It's Maya thanking him for a letter he wrote her and telling him that she finished his book.
Are you hiccuping or are you losing your shit?
No, I'm losing my shit.
Oh, Jeff. Your tears aren't going to help Gary Pretier walk again.
So she tells him...
I'm kidding. You cry.
She tells him everything a writer wants to know. She read his 750-page book. Mm-hmm. She thought it was beautiful. She didn't understand the ending. She wanted to know if every possible thing you could want a human being to say and ask you after they read your 750-page personal novel, she says, and she means it. She is perfect for him.
Yes.
And she says it's turning cold and it's raining, but she likes it. But she's graduating soon and she'll probably relocate. And if he comes up, he should let her know. This is her saying, the 61 is about to expire, dude. This is your last effing chance. Your letter and your book were the explanation I was looking for. I accept it, and I'm inviting you now.
It makes sense that he would pour himself out in a letter, that he would be more successful at explaining himself in the written word, because He's an author. He's an English teacher. He understands written language much more than he could express himself vocally in a moment. And some people can do that, and bless them, but I'm not one of those people, so I really identify with Miles in that respect.
Yeah, and it's not an accident that he's just drunk the 61, because I don't believe he drinks that in a fit of self-pity. I believe he says, what am I waiting for? I've lost everything. I'm not going to let this wine expire. This whole movie, wine is a metaphor. So he drinks the wine, and that is part of his resurrection.
Right.
He's not waiting for the 10th anniversary. He's not waiting anymore. And whether she senses that he's drunk it or not, symbolically, spiritually, after reading his book and reading his letter, she gets the change. She gets who he was, and she gets the change. She gets that he's owned whatever it was he wrote in that letter, which we don't know. We hear the last half of that phone message over footage of him driving through the rain back to Santa Barbara County. And he pulls up at her apartment building and gets out of the car and walks up and knocks on the door. Cut to black.
Cut to black. I love that you don't see what happens. It depends on how you feel about Miles at the end of the movie. If you end up liking Miles, then I think the ending that you want is that she opens the door and they're reunited. If you hate Miles by the end of this movie, nobody answers that door. She's already moved out.
The crucial choice for me at the end of this film, and it's not an accident that it's the third time we see him turning out of a driveway and going the opposite way. The first two times, he's running away. He's not following what he loves. He's there for Jack. He does his duty as the best man, but he doesn't go to the reception to celebrate Jack's effed up idea of infidelity and whatever. He doesn't go that. He's a changed person. He's making not showing up at your best friend's wedding reception is a bold statement. And he's not afraid to do it anymore. To me, that choice is really the thing that shows the change in his character. That's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Dan, this wine has gotten better. I'm sure possibly because I've been drinking it, but also because the experience of talking about this movie has made me want to love wine again. And I'm so glad that this was a good bottle.
Me too.
Because I've had wines before that were like sour and I didn't enjoy them, but this is delicious. And Ami and I will finish this bottle today.
That's great. Good. Yeah, you should finish it within a day or two after opening it.
You tell me what to do. You should get back together with Victoria.
She was good for you.
Now, unlike Tombstone, the makeup job on her in that was so amazing. She's trying to look pretty for Jack, and she's hammered. And she just looks like a
she's
nightmare.
almost Baby Jane.
So good, yes. I think we can put a cork in this one, Dan. Listeners and patrons, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please don't hear this as the stock outro. Please take a moment. Call a friend or one of your college buddies or someone you know that likes the same kind of movies and tell them about this podcast. We really get satisfaction from hearing from listeners, so please share this podcast with your friends and family.
Like and subscribe, rate and review on your favorite podcast app. You can also find The Hero's Journey on Audible and Spotify. If you would like to support the podcast, please visit patreon.com/Hero's Journey Podcast.
Thank you to all those patrons who make the show possible, including our demigod patrons who we love to name in every episode: John Peterson Jr., Scott Sanford, Ricky Garvin, Jeff Scott, Joseph Wilbur, Michelle Calderon, Ami Garvin, Salathiel Jones, Jasmine and Pete Hudson, Mike and Mrs. Zarzana, Randy Sparks, Justin Purvis, and Mark Brightman.
Oh, she's gonna
your mom texted me and said
did she call you a smart
Mrs.
ass?
Zarzana, that's all me. It's not about you. It's about me and my inability. I can't believe it called Mike. I can't do it. I'm sorry,
weird.
Mr. and Mrs. Zarzana.
It's weird to call your friends' parents by their first name, even though we're adults now. We met them as children.
I can see in my mind's eye right now the subtle shake of her head and the disapproval in her eyes, and she's looking at your dad like, oh, that little.
And my dad's laughing right now, probably.
Your dad is laughing. Yes.
He's saying, Suze.
I look forward to the text message. Susie, I can't do it.
Special thanks to Taylor Jordan for composing the Hero's Journey theme, and to Jason Dorff for our artwork. Links to their portfolios can be found on the About page of heroesjourneypodcast.com.
Sideways is copyright 2004 20th Century Fox Film Corporation. Thanks again for listening, and until next time,
journey on.
Are you chewing gum?